stuff I expected? Where was my proof? Where was the evidence that I was right about men being terrible to live with? I kept telling myself it was only a matter of time. The mask always slips eventually. It had to. By the start of the second week, I had a whole list of things Ethan had done wrong. Except if I actually looked at it, none of them were really wrong. They were just male. Like one afternoon, I came home from campus and heard the dryer running. I opened it and saw his clothes still inside. Jeans, t-shirts, some gym stuff. My first thought, of course, he expects me to move it for him. I rolled my eyes, muttering to myself about male entitlement, and went back to my room. But the next day, when I forgot my laundry in the dryer for almost 2 hours, I came out to find it folded neatly in a basket outside my door. I just stood there staring at it. He didn't say a word about it. No note, no, you're welcome, nothing. Just did it and went on with his day. It made me irrationally angry, because I couldn't figure out his angle. Was he trying to score nice guy points? Was it passive-aggressive? Who does something like that with no commentary? Later that week, we ended up in the kitchen at the same time for the first time. I was making pasta. He was chopping vegetables. It was awkward, the kind of silence where you can hear every clink of the knife against the board. Then he asked, "Hey, what time do you usually cook?" I can try to work around it so we're not tripping over each other. I froze. In my head, that question sounded controlling, like he was scheduling me. I gave him this tight smile. "You don't have to work around me. I can handle sharing a kitchen." He blinked. "Okay, I just didn't want to bother you." Then he turned back to his cutting board. No defensiveness, no snark, just genuine neutrality. And somehow, that irritated me even more. The next day, he left a note on the fridge. "Out of eggs. I'll grab some later. Let me know if you need anything." I stared at it for a full minute, trying to decide if that was a subtle way of reminding me to contribute, or if he was just being decent. I couldn't tell anymore. That night, around 11 p.m, I heard movement in the hallway again. My stomach tightened automatically. I peeked through the crack of my door and saw him standing on a stool, changing the smoke alarm batteries. When he noticed me, he startled. "Oh, sorry, didn't mean to wake you." I muttered something about it being fine and shut my door quickly, but my face was hot again. Why did he keep doing that? Fixing things, quietly, like some sitcom. It was making it really hard to hate him. The next morning, I called my mom while walking to class. She immediately went into protective mode. "Sweetie, I don't like this," she said. "Men act polite until they don't. That's how they get you to drop your guard." "I know," I said, automatically, but it sounded weaker this time, like even I didn't believe it. Then later that day, my best friend from undergrad, Jess, FaceTimed me while I was cooking. I must have glanced toward the kitchen door because she squinted. "Wait, is that your roommate?" she whispered. "Yeah. He's making dinner or whatever." She leaned closer to the camera. "Girl, he's totally pretending. They all do that. It's like manipulation foreplay." Be careful, I laughed it off, but it didn't sit right. He wasn't even listening to us. He had headphones in, humming quietly while stirring something in a pan. It didn't look manipulative. It looked boring, normal. Later that night, I found myself replaying those tiny moments in my head. The laundry, the fridge note, the way he never raised his voice. He hadn't even looked at me longer than a few seconds. And that unsettled me for reasons I couldn't explain. I caught myself wondering what his story was. What kind of guy just lives that neatly, that proudly? Was he hiding something? Or was this actually who he was? I didn't like that thought, because if it was, then maybe the problem wasn't him. Maybe it was the way I was seeing him. And that was not a thought I was ready to deal with yet. I hadn't gone out with classmates in weeks, but by the third Friday of the semester, everyone was blowing up the group chat about getting drinks off the semester. I didn't want to be the only one missing, so I went. We ended up at a little place near campus that smelled like fryer oil and cheap perfume. The long table was packed with grad students, half my cohort, all of us still buzzing from finishing midterms. I sat between two of my usual friends, Maya and Erin, who both had the kind of energy that fills a room. First round of drinks came, and with it, the gossip. Someone complained about her roommate leaving moldy dishes. Another about a boyfriend who forgot her birthday. The laughter turned sharp. Maya nudged me. guy roommate, right? How's that going? You started peeing on the seat yet? Actually, no. He's fine. Fine? You sound surprised? I shrugged. I expected worse. Honestly, he's quiet, clean, keeps to himself. Across the table, Sam, one of the guys in our program, looked up from his drink. He had that dry, observant expression that always made people nervous. Wait, he said, why does everyone act like a guy being decent is some kind of a miracle? The table went still for a second. Maya laughed awkwardly. Because Sam, and most of you aren't. Sam smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's a nice blanket statement. He turned. You actually believe that? That men are automatically a problem? Proven otherwise? My instinct was to say yes, the way I always have. But Ethan's face flickered in my head, folding my laundry, fixing that stupid squeaky hinge, quietly cooking while I tried to avoid him. I just go by patterns, I said finally. Experience. Patterns can come from who you choose to notice, Sam said. He wasn't being mean. His tone was even, like he was asking me to think instead of arguing. You ever wonder if expecting the worst just makes you see the worst? Erin rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go. Not all men, right? He shrugged. No, not all anyone. I'm just saying, maybe it's unfair to act like we're all suspects in the same crime. The air around the table felt tight. Everyone went back to their cars, pretending not to listen. I sipped my drink, heart pumping. How did you get it? Quietly. You don't know what it's like to walk home at night and wonder if you're safe. I don't know. But I do know what it's like as people assume the worst about me before we work in the house. That lingered harder than I expected. He didn't push further, just leaned back and changed the subject with a new campus cafe. The conversation loosened up again, but I barely heard it. When I left later, the air outside was cold and efficient. I walked home, playing the exchange over and over. Sam hadn't raised his voice, hadn't tried to embarrass me. He just asked a question I didn't know how to answer without contradicting myself. When I reached the apartment, the hallway light was off. I unlocked the door as quietly as I could. The place smelled like garlic and butter. On the stove sat a covered pan with a sticky note. Made too much pasta. Help yourself to your own. I stood there for a long time, holding that note between my fingers. He didn't owe me that. He didn't even know I'd skipped dinner. I sat at the counter, eating a few bites straight from the pan, feeling something I hadn't felt around a man for a long time. Ungodly. Sam's words echoed in my head. Maybe it's unfair to act like we're all suspects in the same crime. I wanted to argue with it. It's really difficult. But I couldn't find the words. Then something happened that really made me question everything I believed my whole life. The strange thing was, in the days leading up to it, things had almost started to feel normal. Not comfortable, just less tense. Ethan and I had fallen into some kind of quiet rhythm. I wasn't relaxed exactly, but I wasn't watching my back every second either. Still, something in me stayed alert, that low hum of suspicion. I catch myself thinking, don't forget he's still a man. Just because he hasn't done anything doesn't mean he won't. Then I got the call. It was a Thursday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table, hunched over my laptop, editing citations. My phone buzzed. Aunt Rachel, she never called. I answered immediately. Her voice was shaking. Sweetheart, your mum's been in an accident. My stomach dropped. She's okay, stable, but they're taking her to county hospital. Might need surgery. They said if you can get there tonight, you should. My mom had been having weird spells for weeks. Dizziness, fatigue. She kept brushing it off, saying she was just fine. Now this. She started shaking. I grabbed my bag, keys, and phone and started calling Maya, voicemail, Erin, nothing, Jess, straight to missed calls. They'd all told me, call me anytime, I'll always pick up. I believed them. When I got to the third unanswered call, I started crying. Quiet first, then heavier. The kind that chokes in your throat and doesn't feel real. That's when Ethan's door opened. He stepped out, earbuds around his neck, brows drawn. Hey, what happened? I tried to wipe my face, but I was shaking. My mom. Car accident. She's in the hospital, county. They said she might need surgery. Get there. Phone and back to me. That's like 2.5 hours. I don't know. Next time. I'm trying to find a bus or something. I'll drive you, he said, grabbing the jacket. What? No, you don't have to do that. I know. Come on, let's go. He didn't wait for debate, he just moved. We were on the road in under 10 minutes. The dashboard lit up dim blue and the wipers working against a fine drizzle. I sat stiffly, hands clenched in my lap. About 20 minutes in, I broke the silence. Why are you being so nice? He didn't take his eyes off the road. What do you mean? I mean, what's your deal? What's the angle deal? He glanced over, then back. No angle. You needed help. That's not how people usually work. He gave a small laugh, but it wasn't sarcastic. Maybe not the people you're used to. I hesitated. Seriously though, why? Why just drop everything and drive me across the steps and let that hang in the air a second before it comes? And live in my space. We're not strangers. If something bad happened to you and I did nothing, I'd feel like garbage. That's it. No secret plan, no payoff. Basic human decency, I didn't know what to say. The way he said it, not offensive, not dramatic. It landed harder than any argument. At the hospital, everything felt too bright and sterile. Nurses ushered me through. My mum was groggy but alert. Broken arm, mild concussion, stitches. When she saw me, her eyes welled up. Gang. Of course I keep it. Holding her hand. How are you feeling? She looked past me, noticing Ethan lingering by the door. Is that the young man who drove you? I nodded. She blinked, surprised. That was very kind of him. That's rare then to Ethan. Thank you, sweetheart. You didn't have to do that. He gave a small nod. Glad she got here safe. After that, he quietly handled everything. Parking, vending machine coffee, tracking down forms I didn't know I needed. He never hovered. He just stayed nearby, like this calm backup generator that kept everything running while I was short-circuiting. Around 2 a.m., when my mom finally fell asleep, I sat in the waiting area, completely drained. He was there too, stretched out in a chair, jacket folded, ready. My phone buzzed. Mike. OMG, I'm so sorry. I just saw your call. You okay? Aaron. Hey, missed your call earlier. Everything alright? Stared at the screen. They'd said always, but when I needed them, they weren't there. Ethan, the guy I'd once labeled a threat, was the one who dropped everything. No delay, no excuses. Still can't believe you did all this, I said quietly. I still can't believe you're surprised, he said back. I looked over at him, not afraid, not suspicious, just quiet and grateful. No one had ever shown up to me like that. A week after the hospital trip, life slipped back into something that almost felt normal. My mom was recovering fine, Ethan was back to his quiet routines, and the apartment felt steady again. Then the email came. Subject: Roommate. Per your previous request for a female roommate, we've arranged for your current roommate to be reassigned to Block C. I just stared at her. I'd forgotten I'd even filed that complaint for her, back when I still slept at the chair where the dorm. When I looked up, Ethan was standing in the door, coming here. They just told me about the move, he said. Guess because you're uncomfortable? His voice was neutral, not hurt, but it still made my stomach feel. I'm sorry if I made it weird. I opened my mouth, closed it again. No, you didn't. It's fine. Maybe it's safe for both. He gave a small nod. Probably then, he smiled, polite, and went back to his room. The next few days, he packed little by little, boxes stacked by the door, with paste written. He kept pretending it was nothing. When he cooked, I waited until he was done, and was in the living room, and I stayed in my room. It felt like rewinding to the first week, except this time, silence. The morning he left, I found him tightening the strap on one of his boxes. Need help? I asked. He shook his head. Got it. Elevator's open if you want to hold the door. Right. We rode down together in silence. At the said, forcing a small laugh. Guess it would be nice not tripping over each other. Guess so. He smiled at me, the same quiet one from day one. Then he lifted the box and he was gone. The apartment felt wrong the moment the door shut. Too big, too still. His shoes weren't by the door anymore. His mug wasn't on the counter. I stood in the bathroom. I saw the note I'd taped up weeks ago. Please respect shared spaces. For some reason, it was childish. I pulled it off, crumpled it, and tossed it in the trash. Back in the kitchen, I opened my phone and typed, "Me. Thanks again. For everything." 2 minutes later, I knew it all. Anytime. Good luck with semester. That was it. Simple. I set the phone down and told myself it didn't matter. He'd just been a roommate and Housing had finally done what I'd asked for. It was supposed to feel like relief, but the place was too quiet. His side of the counter looked wrong, the shelf too bare. I told myself it was fine, safer this way. At least, that's what I kept trying to believe.
So in this video, I will be discussing some of the conditioning and programming that went into the millennial generation. Now when I mean millennial, I mean the general understanding of what that age group is, and essentially it's people born within the early 80s to the mid 90s. Now there is some debate as to the exact date, but let's just keep it at that. So what is it about us millennials that brings out the worst in so many other generations when discussing us? Well, let's go back a bit. Let's kind of look at how we have been programmed, how we have been conditioned.
I'm petrified with trying to work
Now I can remember, as young as grade 4, going to these dances at this hall owned by the Knights of Columbus. Now these dances were from grade 4 to 6, and we were basically at this bar simulation. It's the best way I can describe it. It was a bar simulation. We would all go in there, 9, 10. There was a bar, but it served Coca-Cola and soft drinks. And in the front of the hall, there was a little dance club where they were playing rap music about smoking crack and grinding on each other. Little John was a popular song at the time. And we were these kids being pushed by society, our parents, our culture, into engaging in a bar-like scenario at the age of 9. Now, I grew up in a small town in North America, small city, I guess, but I've talked to other people, and this was like a common occurrence. And I'm not talking about some like innocent Mickey Mouse type dance. I don't have a problem with that. But I think grade 6 is still a bit too young for that. But anyway, it wasn't like that. It wasn't some Mickey Mouse Club thing. It was hardcore rap being played toward young impressionable minds, telling us to be degenerate stuff. How are we supposed to know about it when you're literally 9 years old? So, just to give you a little glimpse into how we were brought up, as you say. Now, what led to that? To little kids being thrown into a bar simulation. How did we get to that point? Well, there's a generation that gave birth to the millennials, and they're called the baby boomers for the most part. Now, some Gen X did have kids early enough to have millennials, but for the most part, millennials are a product of baby boomers. Now, baby boomers too, if we go back, had their whole other set of conditioning and rapid changes in attitudes, themes in comparison to their parents. But essentially, we were raised by baby boomers, and the baby boomer ethos was planted into us from a very, very young age. There's another term for millennial called echo boomer. And there's also that meme, the 30-year-old boomer, because a lot of millennials are spiritual boomers. So this goes back to the baby boomer. And I'm not going to just be a boomer hater because the boomers had a huge experiment construction of their identity conditioned onto them. But essentially, this was sanctioned onto us by the boomers. So we read these dances first. They were hosted by the Knights of Columbus. And I was kind of looking into who the Knights of Columbus are because I never even thought of that. I thought the dance hall was just called Knights of Columbus. You go there at night. But actually, it's a fraternal Catholic order. Similar to the Masons in a lot of ways, but it's Catholic. And if you know anything about Masonry and Catholicism, it's not really meshed together. But it's this Catholic organization. Now the mainstream paints it as like these people who are against abortion, contraception, hyper-conservative. But these dances were being hosted at one of their facilities that was letting 9-year-olds listen to Little John and rap and grinding on each other. Oh, I just cringe thinking about how our parents let that happen. But yeah, so that's the starting point. Okay, that's the starting point. That's where we're starting. Now, Zoomers, I'm not aware if this is a phenomenon. It doesn't seem like I've never heard of this happening. Zoomers, younger people, it's just that era is solely a millennial thing. Bar simulations. Yeah. So that was a pre-pubescent mind, poisoned essentially by this almost like mass MK Ultra type experiment. I like to think that we were given these, what I like to call preset identities. And there's several of them that are key in the millennial era, but we'll be discussing more of that. We've already established that millennials were engaging in bar simulations at the age of 9 and 11. Let's look at some of the other popular media that was being consumed at the time. There was this genre of movies that was very, very particular to our generation. I basically deem as these coming-of-age rom-coms. And basically the crux of these movies was trying to get the mission of your transition to manhood, essentially, because most of them were from a male perspective, was to lose your virginity in some manner.
Look at this nice campus. Reminds me of all those great college traditions, like homecoming. We've got chicks for sale.
Getting wasted, experimenting, making homemade sex tapes in the dorm room.
That was the goal. I remember at a very young age, 14, 15, 16, that people were being shamed on a massive scale from not engaging in this type of lifestyle. And I'm not coming at this from a Christian perspective saying that this is the Antichrist system or anything like that. I'm just coming at this from my own personal perspective and just trying to explain to the other generations why we are so messed up. Okay? So yeah. Our simulation is 910. had these rom-coms from Hollywood basically telling us that we have to, in order to be a man, we have to have sex with a lot of women. Male. There's a whole other female programming as well that we'll get into. But the preset identities that were being pushed on millennials by the mainstream would be, one of the main ones would be the frat boy, party boy archetype. Now this is the guy who will chug beers and do keg stands and partake in that whole scene. You know, his goal is to get drunk. His goal is to get laid. He's not focusing on his body. He's not focusing on his mind. He's not focusing on his spirit. It's just pure hedonism at a very, very young age. I'm gonna get a bit personal here, but when we were around 14, 15, drug use was off the freaking charts. And I'm not talking about pot. Okay, like, I can remember doing mushrooms at 14, dropping acid at 14. Luckily I never did any stimulants. But lots of kids were doing ecstasy at the time. 15 years old, just popping ecstasy like it was no tomorrow. And I've seen people's minds literally melt from that stuff. And I'm not joking, like their identity had broken down and they were just mush eating at age 16 from doing all that ecstasy. Oxycontin also became prevalent at this time. This was luckily before fentanyl, but Oxycontin was prevalent at the time. Lots of kids were doing that. So that's the we looked at the pre-middle school, like entering middle school age, our school age. In middle school, pot, watching rom-coms. There was also there's the frat boy. What kind of ties into that too is that whole Darwin Award type behavior where at the time Jackass was really popular, so like just acting like a moron was the goal. Yeah, and so there was the frat boy, Jackass archetype, and then another one would have been the stoner archetype. Now, this is being pushed on us like from movies like Dude, Where's My Car? Movies like Road Trip, basically glorifying being a stone bag and, you know, shaming people who did not partake in this culture. I remember, even when we were 14, most of us were smoking pot regularly, getting drunk regularly, and doing all the things that those media outlets were programming us to do. And I don't think I was an extreme case at all. I think I was pretty regular at the time. It's so common and accepted and promoted and seen as the thing, the epitome of life, that was just what happened to us as millennials. Another one of the millennial identities I'm just going to call the wankster archetype. These were middle class, saw what was on TV and erased those entities that were being projected at them. Now this is, we're going to get more into TV too, so another unique aspect of millennial is that our media was, I think, the most damaging era of all. Here's why. So we were right before mass adoption of internet. So maybe some millennials as teenagers were starting to go maybe on YouTube here and there, and were adopting more digital lifestyle. But as we were coming up, and especially in our early teens, it was television. And the television at that time was essentially broadcasting the same type of messages that Hollywood was at the time, and promoting this glorifying lifestyle. And MTV was very popular at the time, and it was constantly promoting these preset identities, these frat bro, stoner, gangster identities that were being pushed onto us and adopted on en masse. There was also like the alt identities that were basically two subcategories, kind of like a proto-hipster and the emo. And these were just also preset identities being pushed on us from the mainstream. So a lot of these shows that were shown, like one of them that comes to mind is the Man Show. Very young, basically projecting masculinity onto us and showing the masculinity of being a drunk, being a goofball, and trying to chase these certain types of women who I will get into because they were programmed as well. But yeah, obviously I'm coming at this from a male perspective in a lot of cases, just from my own experience, but there was this dude bro get drunk wall type of mentality that was being blasted on us from the TV, and because we hadn't completely adopted alternative media at the time, we kind of had a bottleneck of media that we could not basically escape, unlike today where media is more decentralized, and it's a lot healthier, although it is becoming more centralized in a lot of ways. There at least is choice. We didn't have choice growing up, we just had what was given to us. And more so than the beta games, because this type of dude bro mentality wasn't exactly being pushed as hard at the time. They were heading that way. There's definitely certain examples of that, but it wasn't like how millennials were brainwashed, essentially. This dude bro, stoner, gangster, all like set identities. So, it's a bit more of how we grew up. I hope this is starting to get a bit of an idea here of what it was like, all you Zoomers and Boomers out there. So the millennials did have access to the digital world. Early adopters, desktop computers. We were on Web 1.0. Now, Web 1.0 was kind of a scary place in a lot of ways. These websites had some very disturbing content on them. A lot of us were exposed to websites like Tor.com. Sometimes if you were to click on some sort of file, it would be like a strange heading compilation video. Live feed was popular amongst millennials. Yeah, and YouTube has crazy videos, people being mauled by bears and stuff. Royogan type content where he was like watching Two Girls, One Cup and the BME Pain Olympics.
Oh my god! Oh!
Oh, dude, like, Joe Rogan's watching this, let's go watch it. We would watch it and we would be like, holy F, like, what is this? I'm not even gonna explain what that was, but it was basically just gore. So yeah, we had these role models, great role models, just telling us what life is about and that we should just be drugs, essentially. Party, bro. Dude, weed, LMAO. That was another thing, weed. Especially where I was just so prevalent and pushed on us. And basically marketed as this wonder drug. This thing that was going to make you more creative and smarter, focus better. Turns out that we severely messed up the REM sleep. And like REM sleep, a lot of hormonal functions are going to suffer from testosterone, all this effects. And people said that weed wasn't going to cause schizophrenia, but I've seen people in my own life develop kind of these paranoid delusions when they smoke way too much weed. So weed was heavily pushed on millennials as well. And because most of us had baby boomer parents, weed was usually within the household, so it was easily accessed to us. And that's kind of how a lot of us socialized, just through weed. Yeah, it's kind of funny explaining this all and just kind of taking a step back and analyzing myself, because yeah, I would agree with the assessment that millennials are kind of messed up, and here's why, by the way. So there's that, and also millennials kind of come from this first wave of divorce, broken home type deal, which also kind of messes a lot of people up. I know countless of my friends who are all blaming themselves, having this complex that it was their fault for a reason, for some reason. Just blame themselves for that. So there's a lot of conflict with them then with that too. And that kind of translates into how we see them now. Atomized. A lot of them are not having kids, a lot of them are single. And that obviously that's a result of them having just a dramatic type of family situation. It fascinates me now that millennials have become hyper-political, because I remember when we were teenagers, millennials had a very apolitical view, cynical perspective. Almost a Gen X type. And then somehow they developed into hyper political people. Because I remember growing up, I was very much against the Iraq War, even from a very young age, in my teens and whatnot. And trying to discuss this, it was like talking to a brick wall. Like nobody cared. I was pretty much alone on my thoughts on what's going on. Most people didn't think about it. But now you're known as like these annoying political extremists. So what happened between high school and adulthood that led to that? Well, something called college happened. And as someone who went to college, I'm going to tell you that it was so blatantly politicized with a certain agenda that there's no question that a lot of millennials were indoctrinated in college into their current political beliefs. I know it was very hard for me in college trying to navigate through that, because you're kind of in this dilemma where you want to be educated, you want to have this degree. On the other side, you do not want to just play ball with these people. Unfortunately, well, fortunately for me, I didn't play ball, but it caused a lot of problems for me in college. But that's a different story, but that's just kind of ties into this whole millennial meme that they're highly politicized, and the whole snowflake thing. The whole snowflake thing, I think, is because millennials are basically, a lot of them are just traumatized and can't really deal with pressure very well. But if you listen to what I just have told you, it kind of makes sense, right? And I don't really blame the millennials. It's unfortunate that we become such a meme in a way. I remember working landscaping one day. I was working, like shoveling, and he's like, "Oh, it's a good day for work, eh?" I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "Yeah, these damn millennials, they don't know what it's like for us." And the guy was like 35, and I was like, oh yeah, what year were you born in? She's like, "Oh, like, yeah, I was born in 85. And I was like, "Well, you realize you're a millennial, right?" And just the look of terror and denial on his face was like, I just told him that I was an alien or something. He was just shocked, disgusted, and angry that I would dare say that he was a millennial. Because we just have such a bad reputation. And a lot of these 80s people who were born in the 80s are in denial of their millennialhood and try to identify as Gen X. And sure, there's kind of an overlap between X-millennials, the core millennials, which are the early 90s, and then the kind of Z-millennials of the later 90s. But yeah, people are ashamed of their generation. I'm just trying to deconstruct and explain that there's valid reasons why we are the way we are. Also, the year I graduated high school was the year of the financial collapse of 08. And that was tough. That was tough to deal with. For my family, for myself. Essentially, I had to go work in a mine at the age of 18, which was good for me. But when I hear people call millennials lazy, entitled, I could actually admire my former self, and wow, this young guy, this young teenager was working in a mine. Now, I think I was a bit of an outlier there in a lot of cases, a lot of millennials who couldn't secure jobs for sure, because that's definitely a factor. But when there's a financial collapse, it's kind of out of your hands, right? Now as we're approaching 30, we're in this next wave of economic growth. It's just kind of a double whammy for us, but we'll see what happens. So millennials did have a lot of subgroups. That is one thing I can say about them. They're a pretty diverse group of people. Boomer, like there was more of a middle previous generation. Zoomers as well more Zoomer identity, where millennials were given these preset identities to try and give us this humanistic behavior or to follow or emulate what we're seeing in the media at the time. Of course, boomers had this with like the hippie type thing, but it was like more binary. It was like hippie or just regular hippie guy. Maybe they had the biker type of archetype too, but a whole lot. Nothing that was really positive there. We have more of this dude grow. And with the there was a lot of drinking going on, and there didn't seem to be any enforcement or policing or care in regards of parents. No, maybe the odd kid. But for the most part, we were binge drinking by the age of 14 every weekend on a recurring basis, and there was just no care because, well, a lot of people are just chasing materialism and they don't really have time to keep eyes on their kids. So, and also it was normalized at that point, so it was just, there was no barriers to it. As we go back to 10-year-old dance halls that I was talking earlier, which to me, now looking back, current researchers and talking about certain types of strange cults and whatnot, I can kind of see it panning out now, but just ruined in a sense. It's so messed up. So messed up. That was really our story. Just, so, cut us some slack. If you see a millennial who's kind of twitchy, or is prone to breakdowns, just understand where they're coming from and just be patient with them, because they probably had some weird stuff happen. They're probably conditioned with some really messed up behavior that thrown them off for years. They're probably trying to recover. Luckily for me, I'm sober years now. But yeah, it was a journey to get out of that conditioning. A lot of people died. That's the sad thing about this, because the people who couldn't save themselves, the people who couldn't break the conditioning, they fell deep into cocaine. And what cocaine has turned into now is methadone. Yeah, the millennial story is looking pretty grim. I also heard that we are the most obese generation. We are eclipsing the boomers' obesity rates by a lot. Which is unfortunate because there's no reason for it, really. We have... I can't blame their obesity because they grew up with a lot of starch food, right? Now we know that white bread, flour bread, sugar, we know it's bad. This was not mainstream knowledge, but we know it. And yet, we're going to be the fattest generation of all time. We know that these things are harmful, but yet we just... there's probably a lot of co-eating happening with millennials because of all the trauma. So there's that. And I say lift heavy, lift often, and hike because you will really feel a lot better for it. Carbs, with diet. There's also this kind of beta program as well. And I'm going to point via to Michael Cera movies. He's super bad. What was that one movie? The Girls 7 X's. That movie is key to the millennial experience. If you watch that movie, you can basically understand the beta programming that's going on. Essentially, this was like another preset identity where if you were just like this little quirky little dude, and if you just cozied up and were sweet and sensitive enough, that the girl would clearly fall for you based off of your intellectual and artistic superiority. So that's why I think a lot of millennials kind of have this vibe to them, is that they were conditioned to act this way. Movies like that, super bad movie. Zombieland too. Essentially projecting this message to young men that you're going to get the girl if you act like Michael Cera. And then we have this whole crisis where men are not understanding why the nice guy phenomenon, right? That's a huge problem. And all this is a result of this beta program. Yeah, so this beta program is essentially targeting men and conditioning to think that you just relate enough to a woman at an emotional level that you will be able to move her. Instead of developing yourself, becoming stronger, more skilled, more aligned with your own path, and finding somebody who appreciates that path, you just become a very sensitive wife. Yeah, that's I've seen guys go that route. It works. But data programming, the Michael Cera programming was intentionally. I think all this is intentional. If you look at all societies in the world, there are massive sociological programs that are done to the population. Goal. The Soviets, for example, were trying to create the new man. The new man of the glorious Soviet Republic, the glorious Soviet people, was supposed to condition the less materialism type individual, being more collectively minded. So we can look back and see that conditioning is done to people. You think that because we're Westerners, capitalist Westerners, that there's been no influence on our mind from people on a socioeconomic scale, mass scale, from a macro scale? Come on. Clearly there is. It happens everywhere. So to deny that there's some sort of agenda where we see these basic identities manifesting, right? The hipster, the wankster, the beta. These are all so obvious to me, at least. Probably to you. If you're a millennial, share some of your own experiences growing up, because I'm sure you have a lot in common with me in terms of the way we grew up. Now, obviously, this is an NA perspective, but I'm pretty sure the Europeans are not that different. The way we grew up. They consumed the same media we did. Maybe it was a bit different here and there, but essentially it's the same.
Underneath the silver moon we find our way to harmony. Golden nights around us, setting all our spirits free. Surely all beneath our feet the rhythm of eternity. Heartbeat of the universe, it's flowing endlessly. Silver and golden moon, heal us with your gentle light. Silver and golden moon, guide us through the brightest night. When stars align and shadows fade, we'll dance beneath the twilight. Twilight in our eyes will bring peace, will bring peace, like a grand fleece with a golden night. Will bring love, will bring heart, but we'll know it's right. Oh, we'll go with true ease all the way to where it's so out to the edge of what we know, to beseech what is apart. Then bring it back from above, then build it right from the start. It will be even greater, no longer better, getting better, true of heart. Silver and golden moon, heal us from all pain and strife. Silver and golden moon, guide us to the brightest light. Well, hope you all had a good time. I better head to bed. Gotta get up early for work. Good luck on your side, whether it's day, night, or just getting up.